Hello, everybody. I go by Hopper, and I'm out of the Blackhawk chapter of Bikers Against Child Abuse. I'm gonna start with a brief video that's kind of explains what we do a little bit, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail, and then have some questions, question and answer there at the end. So I will go ahead and get started.
What do I get out of BACA?
Can everybody hear that?
Wow. The knowledge knowing that I've done something.
Can everybody hear?
Yes, I would think so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
That no one else can do.
Oh, crying out loud.
And that's to give a child their life back.
BACA is probably the only organization that can do what it does that exists in the world right now.
The goal of BACA is eventually to break the chains of child abuse, so that these children don't grow up and bring what happened to them into their relationships.
First found out about BACA through my counselor, and she said that we should look into this, that BACA was a group of bikers who help and they support kids who've been abused. Before the abuse, I do remember like a happy, just normal life.
Rhythm was very carefree. She was loving and fun.
When I told my mom, she talked to me for about an hour.
She came in and she said, I'm being abused and I want you to know I don't want it to happen anymore. I want it to stop.
My extended family didn't think my story was true. They thought a lot of it was made up. I had night terrors. I was seeing like 2-3 counselors. That was partially why my counselor informed us about BACA.
Level 1 is the first interaction that the child's going to have with the entire chapter. It's where we bring that child in and make them part of our biker family.
Leading up to the night of my level 1, I was kind of like not sure what to expect. All I knew is that there was going to be a lot of bikers at my house in the morning.
That when a child's been brought into BACA, and we decided that it's a case that fits our mission, we as the chapter as a whole will ride off to wherever the child feels safe at to meet. That means the whole chapter goes. Everybody's had a background check for bride.
There's a little bit of a ceremony that goes on with it. The child's reminded about the initial contact where everything is explained to them, what BACA is, what we do, what we don't do.
We present them with a vest, and it has a patch on the back of it and their road name, and it just makes them feel part of.
They get assigned 2 of the members as primaries. Those members are on call for that child 24/7 around the clock.
Peppermint, would you like to meet your primaries now? We have Rembrandt and Lucy. Rembrandt and Lucy have always been here for me, and BACA will always be here for you.
Hi, Peppermint. I'm Lucy. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, Peppermint. I'm Rembrandt. It's nice to meet you.
Seeing this like group of adults, bikers, like being so kind, not even bringing up what happened to me, just saying like, hey, we're here for you, like we're your new family. It meant the world to me.
The level 1 is probably something that is the most empowering part of what we do, because we see a huge change in these children. After about 40-45 minutes, those kids are interacting with our members. In some areas, they go for rides with the membership. They take them on a short ride around the neighborhood.
They looked at her like she was just another amazing young kid.
We're just there just to empower them, to show them that there's people out there that really care about them, and that they're becoming part of our family. And then when they become part of our family, that we have their backs.
When there's a court case, if the judge allows us, we will escort that child to the courthouse. A lot of times when kids go to court, the family members of the perpetrator will show up and they try to intimidate that child.
Carry me home when the light in my eyes does fade. Carry me home when the shadow comes to take me away. Lay down my bones, knowing I'll be in a better place. Release my my soul. Carry me home. Carry me home. There's a sour down in the ground. Carry me home. Don't you weep for right and freedom bound. Laid on my bones. There is peace within the light I found. Release my soul. Carry me home.
Are you scared?
No,
You're not?
my friends are a lot scarier than he is.
Carry me home when the light in my eyes does fade.
When I see these kids, the light come back into their eyes. I get more out of BACA than I could ever put in.
Standing up for child abuse is probably one of the bravest things somebody can do.
You see them after we get involved, and their self-confidence is beaming. They're doing better in school, and they're not afraid anymore. And that's what we do. We give them their life back.
I grew as an individual. I joined clubs in high school. I became varsity captain of the cheer team. I was a vice president. I'm going to college. I owe that to every single person in my life, especially BACA, who stood by me and who supported me and said, it's okay to be scared. We're here for you until you're not.
Nobody gets paid in BACA. Everybody's volunteer from the president down.
We, my brothers and sisters, will do whatever we can to make sure that they feel safe. And when we do that, they can trust again and they can start being kids again. That's what I get out of BACA.
Everything on this patch means something. The white is the innocence of the child.
The red is the blood that's been shed.
The black represents the dark times that that child is going through.
The skull and crossbones is death to child abuse.
The fist is our commitment to fight child abuse. And the chains on this patch stands for one BACA, one united nation. This patch means everything to me. This is my family.
If you are being abused, if you are scared, tell somebody.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay? Everybody hear me all right? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I can hear you, Hopper.
hey Jester. So this is my brother
Hey.
over at the Blackhawk chapter, Jester. If you want to introduce yourself too.
How you guys doing? I am our current VP for our chapter. Been doing this for about 8 years now. I apologize. I was up on a roof and was having technical difficulties. So now just my selfie camera doesn't work, but the rest of it is seeming to play along nicely.
All right. I'm in an air-conditioned office, Jester, so I'm doing okay.
Yeah, enjoy. Enjoy.
Bikers Against Child Abuse exists to provide comfort, safety, and support for children who've been sexually, physically, and emotionally abused and neglected. And we're dedicated to the principle that one of the basic rights of childhood is to feel safe and protected and not have to live in fear. I'm going to go ahead and read our mission statement real quick. Bikers Against Child Abuse exists with the intent to create a safer environment for abused children. We exist as a body of bikers to empower children to not feel afraid of the world in which they live. We stand ready to lend support to our wounded friends by involving them with an established, united organization. We work in conjunction with local and state officials who are already in place to protect children. We desire to send a clear message to all involved with the abused child that this child is part of our organization and that we are prepared to lend our physical and emotional support to them by affiliation and our physical presence. We stand at the ready to shield these children from further abuse. We do not condone the use of violence or physical force in any manner. However, if circumstances arise such that we are the only obstacle preventing a child from further abuse, we stand ready to be that obstacle. So BACA basically started with a simple idea. The founder in Utah was a child play therapist, I believe a licensed clinical social worker. And he grew up in the biker community and drew a lot of strength and comfort from that. And so he put together a group of bikers to see if it might help improve some of the feelings of safety in some of the children that he was working with that were being abused. BACA works only with abused children. So we have a very narrow focused mission. We focus on children, not adults, and we work to empower the child to not live in fear. So we only work with children who sort of fit a criteria. The three that are in that criteria are we have to have some sort of documented incident of abuse. The child has to be living in fear, and the child cannot be living with the perpetrator of that abuse. Membership in BACA, we are non-for-profit 503c3 tax exempt organization. So it's all committed volunteers, and every biker in BACA is from a very wide variety of backgrounds. We have no paid employees. We go through like a vetting process where we do a background check with our members are start off as supporters, and they're fingerprinted, and then we spend a year minimum providing extensive training into everything that we do with the children, how to interact with the child, how to interact with court, what it means to wear the patch in the community. And to start off as a supporter who is assigned a sponsor that basically sort of monitors and maintains their training. There's a lot of time spent riding with the chapter, riding with the sponsor, riding with patched members. And then once a person is patched, they can be a primary to a child. And at that point, they're available to that child 24/7, 365 days a year. I can hear birds.
Sorry, that's my roof.
Jester, you want to help me here? This is one of your favorite parts. What BACA is not.
So what we are not, and people get a lot of misconceptions of what we're doing. We're not vigilantes. We're not kicking in doors. We're not beating up people. To be completely honest, the perpetrator 99% of the time isn't even something that we focus or think about unless they are a true threat to that child at that time. Otherwise, our focus solely revolves around the child and empowering them. If, for instance, though, a perp becomes a true threat to that child, we can go as far as what we do is we call it a level 2, but that's where we'll set up a hard perimeter around the house. It allows police, other authorities, whatnot, to actually, they don't have to protect the house. We have that taken care of. We know for a fact the perp's probably not in two places in particular. They're not at that house anymore, and they're not in jail. So at that point, it gives the opportunity for the officers to truly go out and do their job instead of babysitting. We're not a feel-good organization. We're not Big Brothers, Big Sister. Like I said, we are here to empower the child, but no means are we role models. I hope no child takes after me. But in the meantime, it's truly, again, revolved 100% around the child and catered really to their needs and their timeframes also.
we also have no political affiliation, and we only discriminate against child abusers. So anybody can be a part of BACA, provided that they're able to pass through a background check, complete their training, and have access to a motorcycle. We have no borders. We're an international organization. I always forget the numbers, but I know that we're set up in, I believe, 18 other countries besides the United States.
We're
And
300 chapters in the United States, plus right now 18 foreign countries, and we have a couple other countries that we're working to start chapters.
yeah, so we don't have any sort of parameters other than those three, is being able to pass the background check, complete your training and part in required activities, and have access to a motorcycle. Court. So a lot of times they say that court is the single most empowering event. A lot of times children that we work with, we call them our heroes. They're usually scared and they feel very confused about what they're about to have to do, feel very isolated. And so a lot of times family members and other people who are supportive of the child aren't allowed in the courtroom because they were either a party to or a witness in the abuse itself. And so a lot of times that child is terrified of having to do this by themselves. One of the things that we can do, if the judge allows us, is to be in the courtroom with them so that they don't have to look at the perpetrator or the attorneys. They have us to look at because we're there and we don't have any connection to the perpetrator in any way. We're there solely for our heroes. Even if the outcome of court isn't the one that we desired, if the child is able to stand up and give their testimony in the courtroom, that we always consider that a win. Is there anything?
Can I clarify, Hopper? Can I clarify something real quick?
Yeah, please do.
As we do mention court, and court is something we do, just because there is not a pending court case or court coming up, or even something that made it as far as the judicial system, it does not mean we cannot take that child. So just because there's not a court case doesn't mean we can't help empower the child also. Just court happens to be one of the things that we do help them with. Fire. Sorry.
No. Thank you. That's why I'm glad you're here. I am going to forward some things to Sherry that she can forward to everybody. There's some research that was done in 2007 and 2013 that examines, some outcome measures regarding improvements that we've seen in our children that have been participants in BACA. And the data and the research that I'll be sending, it shows that there were improvements in feelings of self-esteem, confidence, performance in school, decrease in behavior problems that were prevalent at the onset of the studies. And I just don't have those on the PowerPoint, unfortunately.
They're kind of boring.
It's kind of boring. Our numbers person isn't here. Are there any questions?
I would like to, if I could. There's one story that really sticks with me, and it really we talk about one BACA, and part of the reason for that is even if a child that is being, say it's one of the children that we work with the Black Hawk chapter in particular, if that child goes to California, they don't lose their support system. We reach out to a sister chapter at that point and involve them with the sister chapter. For instance, we had a child that was, they were going on vacation and it should have been an exciting time for them. Instead, the little girl was absolutely terrified. And the biggest reason is in her mind, she was losing her support network. So we reached out to one of our California chapters. They were on the beach. I don't remember which one. But basically about 9 of their members hopped on their motorcycles and rode up and down the boulevard for about 30 minutes. The little girl ended up seeing their back patches. They never stopped, never talked. They didn't even know what kid on the beach was actually one of our BACA kids. They just knew there was one of our kids were out there. Drove up and down. Little girl seen them and was within 20 minutes was, you know, very curious about, are we still going to Disneyland like we talked about? I'm not worried. I have friends here. So the empowerment just it continues on for the kids as far as that goes, and they're never truly alone. There's, you know, especially in the United States, they can reach out. There's a chapter somewhere in just about every one of the states. I'll be quiet. Sorry.
It says you spoke someone. I hope I'm saying your name right. Sai. Is that good? Okay. It says you spoke of the level 1 and level 2. So one of the difference of the levels is we call level 1 is where we basically make initial contact with the child to sort of introduce them into our BACA family. That's where we give them the patch and we give them the vest and we sort of explain that who their primaries are and what their primaries are going to be doing. A level 2 is when you know, I guess the best way to do is give an example is, let's say a perpetrator is out of jail and is in the community, and the child is afraid, and so they contact their primary, and what we do is we set up a security perimeter at whatever location they're at, and we'll be there until the child is no longer afraid. A lot of times it's if the perpetrator is arrested or they just feel like they feel safer. But we set up that perimeter and until the time the child's not afraid. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll get help from other chapters, depending on, you know, how many we have available at the time. We'll have other people come from other chapters and sometimes other states. There's a story that I've heard about from people who were there. There was a case in Arizona where there was a significant threat to the child going to testify in court, and we had what is it called, an all-call jester?
Yeah, it was an all-call. You can tell them it was the cartel was on the other side, so we were with the cartel was a threat.
So I think we had something like 2,000 members show up, and they had to start.
But they actually provided a hard barrier all the way around the courthouse, that entire block, the courthouse encompassed. We had members around the entire thing. We had enough support out of that we actually had to turn members away and send them home. It was, I mean, it's amazing when those all calls go out. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It was really big. But the support that shows up for these kids, and literally the all call was put out on a Friday. By Sunday night they were turning people away. Come Monday we had the whole place surrounded.
So I have a question. First of all, I have followed you guys on Facebook for the longest time and I had no idea exactly what you did. How do we find a local chapter of you?
So we are your local chapter. We cover McHenry County all the way to the Iowa border. And then we go south roughly to I-80. We are actually your local chapter. We actually have a few kids in McHenry County.
And I'm actually in DuPage, so you obviously cover DuPage if you go to I-80.
DuPage actually is covered by Fox Valley chapter. That's one of our sister chapters. They're out of the Aurora area, and we can get you their information also.
Great, thank you.
In the chat here, I'm going to put, so what we usually do is we have, a lot of times people find us through the website and they go through the respective chapters. I'm going to put our child liaison number in here. What we do is we have them reach out to our child liaison, who goes and meets with the child initially, gets some base information about what's going on, bring back to the chapter, and set up our level 1s. And so I'm just going to put the child liaison's number in the chat for now. And it's also, this is also information I'll forward to Sherry to send to everybody else.
And also, just a real quick, as we're in other states, if you go to www.bacaworld.org, and I know Hopper will give you guys that too, there's a link on there. You can actually click on individual states, and they will give you the location of all the chapters, and you can find the one that would then suit the needs of the individual that way.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
I know CASA does very valuable work. I actually what is considered the clinical consult for BACA. As a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I've worked with a lot of members of CASA for my career. So I think that you do very important work with our heroes and kids. And so a lot of the times what you're doing advocating for our children in court is something that that's actually service that we don't provide. And so one of the things in our mission statement is that we work in conjunction with organizations. And that's what we're here to do, is sort of provide that supplemental support and service to a child, so that, you know, people like our CASAs can do their job effectively, and the child doesn't have to worry or be afraid, because we're there to do whatever we can to help them not live in fear. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, hi Hopper, this is Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
I am wondering about your role in the court, and as we perhaps try to invite your presence, how do we enroll the judge to say this is a good idea? Those kinds of things.
I got this one, Hopper. So actually one of our members, we have a court liaison, and his job, we make a point to talk with victim advocates, speak to the judge if we can. Some judges will let us truly show up wearing our cups and everything else. We've had other instances because they didn't want any kind of snafus with the trial. They didn't want the defense attorney to be able to use things like intimidation. We showed up in street clothes. And that we've had instances where we've had a huge presence of members. We've had instances where the child truly just wanted a couple people there, and we show up with just a couple people. So it's one of those, we're in contact with the courthouses quite often, and we're begging for permission to come in there and help our children also. So a lot of the times we've already spoke with most of them. And then when we get new judges at election time, we have to do it all over again. Not sure if that helps answer your question at all.
Yes, I think it does. We have a new juvenile abuse and neglect judge that came in January. So
okay,
that's, sometimes we're still all feeling out the waters to see what she allows, since it is a closed courtroom. Sometimes that makes a big difference.
Yeah, we've had instances where we weren't, they closed the courtroom to everybody. And so we sat outside, and as soon as the child came out from testifying, we basically put a security perimeter around her and walked her back to the seating area. And in that scenario there, we all know at court, unfortunately, you have family members, we're going to call them bad guys for lack of better terms, but you have family members, friends, and all that kind of stuff, and they like to give dirty looks and leer and that kind of thing. A couple of us are some tubby fellas, so we just stand in the way. Kid can't see around us. They don't have to look at those people. So even if we're not allowed into the courtroom, it's truly the whole, making the shield sometimes also.
Good job, Jester.
Every once in a while, I shock myself.
Were there any other questions?
How young of the children do you work with?
Typically, the children that we're working with are usually 3 years of age or older, and a lot of times because they don't retain that kind of stuff, or they don't know they're in fear as far as that goes. So a lot of times, like our youngest that we've worked with, I believe is right around 3 years old.
I have a question about anonymity, because anonymity is so important to us in CASA. I'm picturing you all arriving at a child's house with all your motorcycles and a whole bunch of guys. Doesn't that call attention to the home at least and make people wonder what's going on and raise a lot of questions?
That's a great question. So what we'll do so there's times we'll meet at the park. We don't necessarily meet at the home, that kind of stuff. We've met at parks, that kind of thing. If we are in an area where there's the busybodies that want to know about it, that kind of stuff, we don't tell them about what's going on with the child, but typically we'll hand them a trifold, tell them what we're here, what we do, that kind of stuff, and we just leave it at that. It's truly one of those, it's on the discretion of the parents and the child. So it's not one of those like, you're having a level 1 at your house and you're going to have 100 bikers here whether you like it or not. That's not the case at all. We've had some scenarios. We had a very, very timid child, and we knew if we brought the entire state with, it would be absolutely terrifying. And that one we had 5 people show up for.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a much smaller gathering. Like I said, it really depends. Each individual child is so different as far as that goes that we our child liaison actually makes a lot of those decisions when they do the initial contact and decide, trying to decide what's going to be best moving forward for the child. Because the last thing we want to do is be a trigger mechanism for them or cause more damage than has already been caused to them.
And how do you identify those children in the first place? I know you have this liaison, but how do you become aware?
So all of our No, great question. So all of our cases that we do, they're all done on a referral type of basis. And so actually we don't reach out to anybody. They're more reaching out to us. And that's when we have a series of questions that we go through, and they're kind of vague questions, but it's more we're looking to see, unfortunately, sometimes we have to see, is the child really in fear, or does mom and dad want us to just hang around and look cool? And so it's one of those, because this obviously is an out of the box solution to a problem that occurs far too often, but it's not the right tool for every job. And so there are some children that we're like, there's nothing we can do to help this child. God forbid the child's abuser is a biker. Last thing they want to see is 30 of us show up in their front yard.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one that we would regretfully try to decline, just because I don't think we would be any help. I think we'd be more trauma at that point.
Thank you.
Yep.
I actually have a couple of questions. One, how do you pair up children with their primaries? Is there any kind of matching process, or is it whoever is available? How does that work?
So we try to, I'm sorry, Hopper, I'm jumping all over your stuff.
That's all right. Go ahead.
So part of it has to do with location. We try to get a member that's relatively close to the child. Relatively close can be so many different spectrums. The second thing we try to do the second person is we kind of stick them with, like if the kid ends up being a video gamer, we got one of those gamer guys in our group. If the kid is into music, we have a guy who's a band, that plays a guitar and sings in a band. We try to match them at least a little bit that way. And then there's times myself, I found out that the child happens to like a certain cartoon, and I had to become extremely educated in that cartoon. Mine happens to be the Loud House, because suddenly I know more about the Loud House than I've ever wanted to know, but I've watched a lot of it, and just to have conversations.
Another question I had.
I think okay, good. I was gonna say I think it's a two-part question, and I don't know if I answered it all.
Yeah, no, you definitely answered the first part, and we do some similar things when we're trying to match advocates with cases of trying to see if there's similar interests, or sometimes we do have to kind of learn about something that maybe we weren't so well versed in before, so we're pretty familiar with that. But I was curious if either of you have been primaries. It sounds like Jester, you have, but if you could just tell us a little bit about your experiences being the primary with a kid.
So I can tell you it's been one of the most rewarding and absolute heartbreaking things I've ever done. I think I've had 11 kids now that I've worked through. Some of the kids, honestly, will become far closer to you than others. Some call, like I have one little girl, I love it to death, but she calls me every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And I look forward to that phone call because I'm sure there was some sort of shenanigans through the week that I can't wait to hear about. And at the same token, for us, what we consider a victory to us is when that child no longer calls us. And not that they don't call us because we don't want them to, but they no longer need us. That is a victory. It's also incredibly heartbreaking sometimes because you're like, man, I look forward to my 4 o'clock therapy session on Wednesday talking to my little hero, because that's super therapeutic for me, just listening to them talk about all the cool things they got to do last week. So it's a bittersweet. It's one of those, you're doing the right thing and it's working because they no longer need you because they're not afraid, but it's also heartbreaking because they no longer need you because they're not afraid anymore.
I've been a primary as well. I have well, one of the things we do is we never go by ourselves face to face with our kids. We always go in pairs. And so I've gone with a lot of the members to our child visits for things like that. We have a teenager who he'll be invisible for a long time, and then all of a sudden he'll reach out just because he needs somebody to show up, and so we let literally what we go and do, and he'll be doing well for a while, and then he'll stumble and fall into some problems, and seems like everything clears up for a while after we show up. I think Jester said it a lot better though. It's bittersweet when they've moved on.
Now, even with that being said, with it being bittersweet, twice a year we do offer a party for all of the children, whether they're past BACA kids or current BACA kids. And it's a party just for them. We provide security at it, the whole 9 yards, and they get to act like absolute monsters and hooligans for 2 hours, have a good time, typically drive or run us ragged while we're doing it. But for us, that's kind of our, as none of us get paid, that's our payday. We get to watch these kids go out and be children. And there's no fear, no stuff like that. They get to watch me fall down while roller skating and things like that. They think that's amazing. I don't think it is so much. I don't heal as fast as I used to, but there's things like that. So we never, if they don't want to 100% lose touch, they don't have to either. But like we've had some kids that they're empowered, they've moved on, their life is going fantastic, and we haven't heard from them. I haven't heard from my first BACA child in probably 5 years now. I do know her mom's reached out. She's graduated off to college and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we get little updates here and there.
Did anybody else have any other questions? Well, if there are no other questions, I just want to say that I really appreciate for the opportunity for us to meet with you and talk with you. I really respect the work that you do. I know that BACA respects the work that you do. And if you ever need or have a child that you think would fit our criteria and could use our help, please feel free to reach out and we'll have a look at it.
And same
Well-
thing, if you have any other questions, please reach out to us. We will happily answer.
We appreciate your time. We appreciate all the information. It was awesome. And we appreciate what you guys do.